I'm going to share the number, and I will say that when I added it up, I had to add it up like 15 times because I was like, this can't be right. We redeemed points for a value of $140,000.
My guest today is a founder, entrepreneur, and one of the most strategic travelers I have ever met. She takes 12 to 15 trips per year with her family of 4. Her kids have visited 25 countries before even finishing elementary school, and she lives in one of the most expensive zip codes in the country. And this episode, she gets into the actual numbers. Rachel Lipson breaks down how her family redeemed $143,000 worth of travel last year using credit card points, and how she adds up the cards, the welcome bonuses, and the transfers to make it all work.
If we tried to take all of those trips a year, or even maybe a fraction of those trips a year, paying cash for them, we would have a very hard time, but we use credit card points for the vast majority of it.
She walks us through a nearly 3-week trip to Milan, Athens, Hydra, and Malta, business class on Emirates, suite upgrades, 5-star hotels, and what it actually cost out of pocket.
We stayed at the Park Hyatt Milan, which is by far one of the best hotels I've ever stayed at in my life. That was literally $0.
Plus, how she built a music school that runs almost entirely without her, the money philosophy behind her marriage, and the one thing people always get wrong about credit scores and points.
My credit score is very high. Credit scores for people who have a lot of cards and are responsible with them tend to be actually extremely high.
I'm Ashley, certified financial planner, founder of The Fiscal Femme, and I'm asking the question everyone is already wondering. How do people actually afford their lives? This is How Do You Afford This? Welcome to the show, Rachel.
Thank you so much, Ashley. So fun to be here.
So happy to have you. I said it before, but I'm so excited for this conversation. Just to kick it off, you take 12 to 15 trips per year with your family of 4. Your kids have visited 25 countries before they've even finished elementary school, and you live in one of the most expensive zip codes in the country. How do you afford this?
Well, when you put it like that, it sounds like I don't know how I afford it. If we tried to take all of those trips a year, or even maybe a fraction of those trips a year, paying cash for them, we would have a very hard time, but we use credit card points for the vast majority of it. We plan around school holidays, and we love Brooklyn where we live. We've made it work. We had owned a place somewhere else. We had kind of renovated it, sold it, used that money to put into the down payment of our new house. We were able to kind of trade up. And that was a big part of how we were able to get our home.
It's incredible. I'm so excited to dig into the numbers and the points and all of your strategies. But first, you obviously have a passion for traveling and traveling as a family. You're not leaving the kids at home. Do you know where this passion for travel comes from for you?
Well, I will say one thing about not leaving the kids at home. I mean, we don't have anyone to watch the kids at home. So where we go, they go. Where we go, they go. We love family travel. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's great. And there's so many aspects of it that we really love. But I think a lot of families travel without their kids because they can. And generally speaking, that while we have taken a couple trips when my parents have been able to watch them for, 4 or 5 days here or there, generally speaking, where we go, they go. And we, travel was something that I was actually, without getting into this, as a kid, I was very afraid to travel. I was agoraphobic as a child, meaning I had an intense anxiety of feeling trapped, of being in my house, of being afraid to leave my house. And so travel was not something that was a positive thing or anything I wanted to do. But when COVID hit, as I got older, I started to kind of get over some of my anxiety around travel. When COVID hit and we were literally trapped inside of our homes, all I wanted to do was travel. And so I kind of got my wish that I was home, and that's all I wanted. And then I didn't want to be there anymore. What I wanted to do was
I didn't know that backstory. That is such
Yeah.
an incredible backstory to it. So you weren't a traveler. This wasn't something, so you didn't even realize that you loved travel till COVID hit.
I didn't love
Is that
travel.
right?
I mean, I
Yeah.
actually didn't love it. It was very fraught, full of so much stress and anxiety. And I mean, I would take trips as I got into my 20s and 30s. I would take trips, but I wouldn't consider myself excited to travel. I was anxious about it leading up to it, anxious about it on the trip. So it really wasn't until after 2020 when I really thought I want to get out there and see the world and see it through my kids' eyes, see it with my kids. I mean, it really became something that was like and is a real passion.
Wow. And I don't want to sidetrack the convo too much, but curious, like, do you experience any of the fear while you're traveling now? Or it's really, or it's just so often now that it's pushed through? How do you experience it now?
I think my anxiety has kind of surfaced in other places. So it's one of those things that's like matter is neither created nor destroyed. It hasn't gone away, but it sort of bubbles up in other places. I do still have a lot of anxiety just in life. So it comes with me wherever I go, also like my kids. But I really do feel calmer and more used to being at new places. And also have worked on all kinds of strategies that like to just feel more comfortable making plans, like being more in control of my environment in general, finding things that make me feel more comfortable wherever I go so that even if I land in a new place, it doesn't feel fully new. It feels a little bit comfortable and like home.
Wow, that's incredible. And it's also like 12 to 15 trips a year. That's like major exposure to something that was
Yes.
so scary before. I want to highlight a Substack post you shared breaking down exactly how much value you pulled from points last year. Can you share that number? I think it would blow people away.
Sure. So, I mean, the number, I'm going to share the number, and I will say that when I added it up, I had to add it up like 15 times because I was like, this can't be right. Like, I double checked, I triple checked. I was like, this cannot be right. Like, how is this possible? So, last year, my family saved, and I would say saved like in quotation marks because like we wouldn't have spent this much money if we didn't have the credit card points and points and miles to use for it. We redeemed points for a value of $140,000 plus, actually a little bit more, $143,000 of travel.
Wow.
Yeah,
That is so incredible. And we want to talk about how you do that. Maybe could you walk us through like the last trip you took and what the finances looked like? And if it doesn't have to be the last one, it could just be a recent one that comes to mind, like how the finances worked of it versus points versus dollars, what you did with your apartment and all that.
sure. Okay, so the last trip we took was a big trip. We took almost 3-week trip that was kind of an overlap situation where the kids go to different schools and had 2 different vacations, but they overlapped for part of it. And so we took our whole family went for the first 2 weeks, and then I stayed with my 10-year-old son for the last week so that everybody could kind of miss a little bit of school, but not too much school. And it ended up where I was on the trip and my 10-year-old was on the trip for 3 weeks. So we started off in Milan, and that was because we got an Emirates flight on the A380, which is like the, largest commercial aircraft with the double-decker seating and a bar on board, and depending on the airport, you can sometimes board the plane from the lounge. So we flew business class using points that we had booked. I mean, almost a year before, I think we had booked this like way in advance, knowing that spring break was going to be this big trip that we were going to go to Europe. And with that, I will add that Milan wasn't our destination for that trip. That was just where we found the flight to Europe for business class at the points price that we wanted. And we were excited to take this like kind of bucket list flight. So that was how that part of the trip came to be. We stayed at the Park Hyatt Milan, which is by far one of the best hotels I've ever stayed at in my life. And I've stayed at a lot of hotels now. And that hotel we stayed at on points, that was literally $0 because when you pay with points at certain hotel brands, you don't have to pay even any taxes. And with the status that we have, from all the hotel stays and from spending on particular credit cards, we were able to get free breakfast, a suite upgrade, like all kinds of different perks. And we stayed there for 5 nights, which was a hefty fee in points because we had to get 2 rooms because we're a family of 4. And in Europe, there's like strict occupancy rules. So you have to have 2 hotel rooms. And so we got 2 connecting rooms. So we had this like massive suite connected to this great room for the kids. I mean, it was like an amazing trip. And by the way, I love Milan. It's one of those overlooked cities that I think people should go to and experience. Like if you like design, architecture, fashion, all the things. Then we took what did we do? We took a cheap, like, inter-European flight then from Milan to Athens, and that we paid cash for. I always try to just use cash for those, like, EasyJet flights or Ryanair or whatever it is that you, like, unfortunately have to take when you're in those when you're, flying between countries. We took those with cash. We arrived in Athens. We stayed at a hotel on Points for a couple days, and then we ended up switching to a different hotel that was more central, which was like a quick pivot that we did because we weren't crazy about the location of the Points hotel. So we ended up splurging on a hotel that actually you can use points for, but I was so overwhelmed by like the change and the kids and the new city and everything. And I like literally couldn't get it together to just figure out the points for that, even as like a points expert. I just we just
Relatable.
and we kind of were like, "You know what? Like, every trip we took this year was on points." Like, "Well, can we just pay cash for this one? We'll earn points. This will help us to fund a future trip." So we kinda made that decision and let it go. And so we stayed at a hotel that was very central and beautiful. We really loved it. And then we took okay, so then from Athens sorry, long this was probably not the
No,
long
this
answer
is
you
like
thought you
what
were gonna get.
I want all the
Our
details. I
epic
love it.
our epic trip. So we stayed in Athens for a week. We took a ferry one day to Hydra, the island that's about an hour off of the coast of Athens. I wanted to see Leonard Cohen's home because I'm a huge Leonard Cohen fan if you are into folk music. And so that was like a cash booking. It wasn't that expensive. It was a few $100s and like so worth it and so beautiful. We didn't stay on the island. We just came back. My husband and our 12-year-old flew back on Emirates from Athens to New York using points yet again. That is
Just
called
interrupt with
just
the
quickly. Yeah,
flights, the points you still have to pay the fees, but then the flight is free, right? Is that how it
that's
works?
right. You pay taxes on the cash price, so it can be significant. I don't remember exactly how much the taxes were, but I mean it can be from a couple $100 to or I mean, it actually can be less, but it's usually for any European airline, it's gonna or, anything abroad, it's gonna be at least a couple $100 and it could go up to thousands of dollars. It wasn't thousands of dollars. I think it was under $1,000 total, but that's 4 people in business class with points. It was pretty special.
That's great.
So, yes, they took that flight back, and that's called a Fifth Freedom flight, which is it's segment of a flight that you can take that's basically taking you from on an airline that doesn't have a home country in the departure or the arrival city. So Emirates is based in Dubai, and you can go from but you can so they have their flight path is like Dubai to Athens to New York or Dubai to Milan to New York. And so you can actually just buy the segment that's Athens to New York or Milan to New York or vice versa. And that's called the Fifth Freedom flight. And so we got those and it's great because you get to take advantage of like the really fancy, upscale amenities on the flight that you wouldn't normally have for like an 8-hour flight, 10-hour flight. Okay. So that's what my husband and my older son did. And then my younger son and I flew to Malta. Probably we used like EasyJet or something like that, one of those like discount European airlines, paid cash for that, got to Malta, stayed there using a credit and benefit from a credit card that we have. So we got like a discount and upgrades and $100 on-site credit that again, like I know this is supposed to be one of those things that I should be able to keep track of, but somehow when we checked out, they were like, "You forgot to use your $100 on-site credit," and I completely realized that I forgot I had it. And they were like, "Do you want to buy anything?" But we were late for the airport, so we didn't even use it. So it's like, just keep it. It's fine. So hopefully that's a little relatable. I don't even use all the benefits and credits, even though we would have loved to use the $100. So not because we couldn't use it, but just totally forgot. And then we took a flight from Malta to Milan. I will spare you the details, but it was canceled when we got to the airport due to an Italian strike. But we eventually made it back to Milan to catch our Fifth Freedom flight from Milan to New York on Emirates. It was an epic trip. It was a lot of points, a lot of fun, a lot of art and architecture and food and really special times.
That's incredible. We actually are flying to Milan in later in the summer because of the same. We had Emirates points and we didn't. I don't if maybe it was like too late to upgrade, but we didn't upgrade, and I don't know if that's like a very big missed opportunity. We'll see. So I'll have to talk about
It's
that.
great whenever
Um,
class you fly. Emirates is wonderful. Their service is great. You'll love it.
okay, and then these points, where are they coming from? Like, are they with credit cards? You mentioned hotels? Like, where are you getting the points from?
So the points typically come from credit card spending, with one caveat that there's no way that I could ever spend as much money as it would cost to take these trips if it was just like one for one. It's usually coming from credit cards that have what are called transferable points, which are points that you can take from the credit card and transfer to airlines and hotels to book those flights directly or those hotels directly. So that means putting regular spending on credit cards and then transferring the points when I'm ready. But then we also, because we could never spend this much money to afford this many trips, even with points, we take advantage of welcome bonus opportunities. So if a card has a certain welcome bonus and you spend this much money and this much time and you get this many points, we will take advantage of those, and we do it very strategically so that we're sure that we do it in the right order so that we're not locked out of other opportunities, and we can maximize all of the possibilities with various credit cards that are out there and earn points that we can use for these trips.
Amazing. And one other thing you've mentioned, I didn't sound like you didn't do this on this current trip, but you mentioned once to me that you do apartment swapping. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So, yes, we do home swapping, which we do a little bit less of lately, I think because of the points kind of make it possible to stay at hotels also. It's a little bit easier to not have to get your house ready, when you've got a family and you're packing up to go. And then you've also got to make sure your house is very ready for a whole other family to descend upon it. But we do a home swapping platform that's yeah, it's not a small feat.
Right.
And I live in actually, I'm we're very organized and my house is usually very tidy. And still, I go crazy trying to get the house ready for people to stay here. So it's a lot. So we do one-to-one home swaps, meaning it's a platform that we use that allows us to swap with just one individual family. It's not like a point system. As much as I love points, it's not a point system. It's not something that gets you credits to use for a stay with somebody else. It's like you're talking to somebody in some city and they want to come to your house and you want to go to their house and you work out the details. So it can be like they come to your house at the same time and you do a simultaneous swap, or you can do a non simultaneous swap where they just come at another time or you go at another time when somebody else is traveling. So we do a lot of that. And actually, I don't know if anyone stayed at our house during that trip. I should remember. I cannot remember. But recently, it might have been that trip. I mean, that's the thing about taking a lot of trips a year. The downside is it all starts to meld together and I forget what's what. But we had a family from Barcelona stay. Maybe it was that trip or the one before. And so we have now an open chance to go to Barcelona. And we were just somewhere else. Our house was empty anyway. And it's no money exchanged. They stay at our place, we stay at their place, we see the pictures, we like their place, they like ours, and we make it happen.
So far, only good experiences with it?
Mostly good.
Mostly good.
I mean, we've done a
Other than the
lot. We've
work.
done dozens. It's the work is a lot,
Wow.
but we've done a lot. And I think we're probably one of the most active families on their platform. And mostly good. There have been some things somebody seemed to have a party, which was absolutely not what we had agreed upon. Mm,
Right.
There was something where it seemed like somebody had smoked inside, which we don't even smoke, and we definitely don't allow that. And they had burned a hole in a blanket that we had brought back from Portugal, and ultimately the
Oh,
family replaced it and paid the shipping and tariffs and everything to get it sent to get a new one sent to us. So they made up for it. But, these are stressful things. The thing is, even if somebody, we've broken things, we locked somebody out of their house once. That was so embarrassing and horrible. And it was a two key situation and a European door. And they had a key in one and we put it, and we got the lock stuck and then they couldn't get into their house. And I felt so bad. So, we've been on both ends of it. And generally speaking, you just have to look at it as like, this could have cost us thousands and thousands of dollars to book this stay. And also, these are mostly homes that, people don't usually rent. So it's
Right.
not like they're on Airbnb or they're swapped. They're just like people's homes, and many of them are really beautiful and interesting. And so, yeah, we really enjoy it. It's really special.
It I think about it that way too, like, I have 2 wild, rambunctious kids, like, they damaged my house. Like, how bad could another family be?
Yes.
Curious, are you able to share the name of the company you use?
Yeah, it's called Be Home. It's a
Be
it's a Spanish company. They're based in Barcelona, and I've gotten to know the founders. We've met up in Barcelona. We happen to both be in Mexico City at the same time once. We've had a lot of opportunities to get to know each other, and I absolutely love them. It's been a great experience. Yeah, it's really
That is
fun.
so cool.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, so points are obviously a huge part of your strategy and what you've crafted your incredible business to point around. If you had to, I've even been taking notes of things that you've shared already, but if you had to give us your top 3 strategies for those of us who want to afford to travel more, what would you say?
All right. So, first strategy is to make sure that you are taking advantage of the money that you're spending. Like every dollar that you spend, I'll put it this way, every dollar that we spend goes towards future travel. So we're always thinking about, well, whether it's the multiplier, like the 1x, 2x, 3x that you get, like the points you get per dollar that you spend, or whether it's this is going to go towards this welcome bonus. And then that means I'm going to get 100,000 points, for my $5,000 of spending or whatever, just as an example. That is something to really consider is how you're making the money that you're spending work for you and get something back.
How do you keep track of that? Like, I get how if it's like a welcome bonus, it's like, all right, we're going to hit this, everything goes there. But the 1x, 2x for different things, do you keep that in your head or do you have a system?
Well, generally speaking, the best system is to be working on a welcome bonus as often as you can. So then the
Mhm.
multipliers don't matter because no multiplier will be as good as as most of the welcome bonuses. But then there's cards that have, if a card has 4x on dining or 4x on ride shares and those are like living in New York City and traveling a lot, dining, as you can imagine, and ride shares are a big part of what we end up spending money on or like transportation. There are some cards that have just like a high multiplier to begin with. So something that's like a 1x card isn't amazing, but maybe there's one that's 1.5x or 2x. That can be really helpful as just a baseline so that if you're not working on a welcome bonus, you're focusing on a card that's just your everyday card that has a higher multiplier than the typical 1x. So it doesn't have to be all or nothing. You don't have to be like only thinking about multipliers and putting stickers on your cards to remember. I mean, that can make anybody crazy. And like, who has time for that? I mean, some people do, but like, I, like you have 2 rambunctious kids and a dog and all kind and 2 businesses. Like, I don't have time for that. So I can kind of get by with whatever I memorize. But like, again, like forgot the $100 credit at that hotel. It's very hard to,
It's not
it
perfect.
can be hard to keep track, but you can put like stickers. You could put a little note on a card and anyway, anything is just habit. So if there are cards that you have that have better multipliers in certain categories, most people spend, like gas is not a multiplier for us. Like we live in New York and we don't even have a car. So that's not even something I think about. But dining, ride shares are. So I just remember the cards that I use for that and like hand them to my husband, like, use this one. Don't forget.
Don't forget.
you know, and then I shame him if he
Okay,
makes a
amazing.
mistake. No. Yeah. So, typical stuff.
Okay, so number 1 is be very mindful of where you're spending on which card.
Yep. Number 2 is something a lot of people don't know about or find very mysterious and confusing is transferring points out to partners. So that's transferring points out to airlines and hotels and booking your travel directly through them. So instead of going into the travel portal of your credit card where it says like book travel and then you can go and it's like a nice like website that you can go and you can search, for everything that you want to book. Instead of doing that, which is like user friendly and where they want you to go and they make it easy to do it, you can find the little button or in the drop down menu that says transfer points to partners. And it's usually hidden. It'll be like in the last menu and the last drop down. if your card allows it, transferring points to partners can get you significantly more value. It doesn't mean every time you do it, you're going to get more value. So that's something that's like a misnomer that people are like, I tried it, I looked, and it was like a worse value. But it's not like that. You have to find the good value. But the first rule of thumb is to not use that portal, because that portal, aside from it being a third-party booking site and having kind of all kinds of headaches associated with those bookings, you're unlikely to get even close to the same value that you could get if you were to transfer your points out. Number 3, I feel like there's a lot of things that tie for number 3. One is, well, let's say this. Hoarding points is something that a lot of people do. They get really stressed out by not knowing when they should use their points, when they should not use their points. I'm a big fan of using points. Like, obviously, I book a lot of trips, but I'm also a big fan of earning points. So they go hand in hand. You got to earn them and you got to spend them. If you hoard them, they are like cash sitting in a bank with everything getting more expensive around you. They lose value. So there's points inflation, just like everything else, and they devalue over time. So you don't want to just leave them sitting there. There's no like high yield savings account for points, like where they're, growing. That would be great, actually.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that? Who wants to go
Business
into business
idea.
with me? Business idea. You heard it here
Invest your points.
first. Yeah, trademark. But like they're not gaining any value. So you want to use them but you want to use them wisely. So keeping in mind that there is a calculation that you can that's like very confusing. So I kind of want to spare you the details of it. But there's a calculation that will help you figure out the cents per point, like how many cents each point is worth. And if you do that calculation before you go to transfer any points or before you go to book a trip, you can make sure like, I'm doing this and it's the right thing to do and I'm getting good value. And then you can move forward and not just be sitting on all your points.
Take action. I get a lot of questions about how playing the points game impacts your credit and how many cards are too many. How many cards do you have right now? And like, how have you seen fluctuations in your credit score, or has it not been a problem for you?
So I'm like, my number of credit cards is a lot of credit cards. I have a lot of credit cards. I mean, I will tell you, I have dozens of credit cards. I mean,
It's
dozens.
amazing.
Like, I don't even know how many I have. I mean, I do. Like, it's not like, oh, I have no idea. Like, I know, but I don't know the exact number. But I
Right.
know what they are. And I keep track of everything. There's, I think, again, like there's a lot of misconceptions about points and cards. And I think one of them around credit scores is, and just sort of around cards and points in general, is that you have to rack up debt in order to earn these points. And it's actually exactly the opposite. If you're somebody that carries a balance on your cards, you will have a very hard time getting approved for cards and a very hard time kind of playing the points game. It will be very hard for you. So actually paying off your balances in full each month on time is like the bare minimum of your like entry point for traveling with points. So I think that's just like one important thing to know. And then the
Hmm.
second thing about credit scores is my credit score is very high. Credit scores for people who have a lot of cards and are responsible with them tend to be actually extremely high, because your credit score is made up of different pieces, and the biggest part of your credit is payment history and paying your cards on time and all of that. But the second biggest, well, what most people think the second biggest is inquiry. So that's like, oh, I'm going to get a hard pull on my credit, like it's going to be a ding, I shouldn't apply. But that's actually a small part of your credit. It's not that it doesn't matter, but it's a small part, a small percentage of your credit score. So if 35% is your payment history, 30% is credit utilization. And the crazy thing about it is 30% of your score, and a lot of people don't even know what it is. So credit utilization is how much credit is available to you. Ashley, I know you know this, but I'll tell
No,
your
yes.
crowd.
Tell me. Tell
Uh,
us. Tell us.
okay, I'm telling everybody. I was just, thinking I'm telling Ashley about credit scores. But
No,
well,
but I really get
the
this
money
question a lot
expert.
because people
But
are so
you get, yeah,
inspired, but they're worried.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So credit utilization is how much credit is available to you versus how much you use. And you want that number to be really low. The higher it is, the more risky you are to lenders. So if a credit card company sees that you're using 50% of your credit available to you, that's risky. They're like, wow, if we give them more credit, they're just going to use like as much. If you're using even more than that, it's very risky. So if you have a new credit card, and that credit card has a credit line of, so let's say you have a credit card now, your credit card has a credit line of $10,000 and you spend $5,000 a month, that's 50% credit utilization with your one card. If you now get another card and you get another $10,000 in credit line, but you're responsible and you still spend your same $5,000 a month anyway, now your credit utilization is dropped in half. So that's how over time having more cards can drop your credit utilization like significantly. And we live in Brooklyn, we spend a lot of money, have businesses that have a lot of expenses and, family expenses and all kinds of things. So we spend a fair amount. My credit utilization is probably between 1% and 2%.
That's what I
So
hear.
that's how
The
you do it.
top credit scores are under 4%. Yes. And I
Yeah,
think to your point, the these benefits aren't worth it if we're carrying a balance. It's like if you're able to pay it off every month, then that's when we can kind of get into the quote unquote game of this and because those interest rates can be so high that it's like outweighs all of these benefits. So thank you for that
100%.
rundown.
Yeah,
For people
absolutely
who
agree
are
with
like
you.
just so inspired that are about what you're sharing and they're just feeling overwhelmed. Like, I know that this can be overwhelming, even like you mentioned, like, oh, I forgot to do this or I did this thing wrong. Like, what would you say is a great first step for them?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the overwhelm of this is like what the credit card companies and the hotels and airlines are kind of literally banking on. They're hoping that I mean, I don't know, I can't speak for them, but it's like, it's so confusing that you throw up your hands and you just say, this is like too confusing. I'm not going to mess around with it. Or it's for other people. It's like, it's not for me. It's like, I don't have time. It's for
Mm,
people with more time, but it's not. The first thing you can do is just focus on one trip, like focus on one part of a trip. If you were going to take a trip anyway, think about, can you get those flights covered with points? Can you get that hotel covered with points? Maybe not look at it as, I mean, if you sit there and say, okay, next year I'm going to take 12 to 15 trips in a year and I'm going to save 140,000 points, $140,000, like that's going to sound overwhelming. And I'm sure sounds inspiring, but it sounds also probably totally unrelatable. But it is possible. I will say you don't have to do that. It's not all or nothing. It's not like every trip you take has to be covered with points and you have to get like the best value and go crazy over it. You don't have to be into it to use points. You just need to be smart about it. So just keeping in mind those point values, keeping in mind transferring the points, making sure that you're earning points on your spending and just using them for something that's wise sometimes is a good start. It doesn't have to be everything all at once.
I love it. Starting with one thing. I really could talk to you about points for the whole time, but I want to talk a little bit about your businesses because you are inspiring other than the amount of travel that you do on points. One of the things I found so inspiring, you mentioned you had two businesses that you've built this business, a music school that mostly runs without you. I'm curious, like, what did it take to get to that point?
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. Yes, 17 years ago, I founded a songwriting school for children. So that company is called Blue Balloon Songwriting for small people, and we offer one-on-one in-home music lessons to kids in various cities, mostly in New York and then elsewhere in virtual. So that was not meant to be a plug for the school, but I want you to know what we do. So that's
No, I'm
teachers
all about the
going into
plug-in. Please
students'
plug.
home. Teachers go, I just realized I've had the business for 17 years, so I've fine-tuned my elevator pitch for the business. But the teachers go into the students' homes. So they're one-on-one music lessons. And over many years, people used to say, when are you going to have a brick and mortar? Like that'll make you a real business. That's when it'll be like a real legit company. I mean, this was, when I was younger, but still. And then obviously COVID hit and I was like, I am so glad I don't have a brick and mortar. And I just love the convenience that it offers families. And so everything is remote. So that's the first thing to know about the business. Everything on my end is remote. So I'm not going to these, lessons and all that. The teachers are going, they do in person, but my relationship with the business is mostly on a remote level. So I got the business to a point about 4 years ago or so where my team runs the day to day. I have like a whole amazing team and they all know exactly what they're supposed to do and they have everything really They delegate things as they need to, and everything is covered by everyone on the team, and it allows me to be able to come in and kind of oversee things and then step away. So they really are able to run it in a way that doesn't need me. And I will say I think of the company as it's 17 years old. It's kind of like almost an adult, it's like going to college. Like I meet with it, we have dinner, but like I don't have to like pick it up after school, like take it everywhere. Like it can manage without me, but it still needs me.
Right.
Like I come in when I'm dead, but it's like healthy. It's like a healthy relationship. Like it's grown and I've given it what it needed to be at this point. Like it's not a coincidence, but it's a really incredible place to be with a business.
With that 4-year-old mark, like 4 years ago where it shifted, was it just that the business was mature enough for that, or did something change with your mindset that said, "Okay, now it's time for it to, go off to college or go on without me?" Like, what shifted 4 years ago?
So 4 years ago was like the tail end of COVID times, and what happened was during COVID, I was working like crazy like everybody else, but I had been working like crazy for many years. So I was working like 15 to 16 hours, 15 to 18 maybe hours a day for many, many years and was really struggling, but also had such drive and was like, I'm doing this. It was so important to me. But when COVID hit and my kids were home, I had always worked from home, but then my kids were there and like that was like, this is a lot. And what ended up happening was I just like burned out. Like it just happened really
Mm,
fast. It was too much. It was like too much overwhelm trying to clean the house in between like cooking and watching the kids and working. I mean, it was like way too much. And so that's when I started to realize that I needed to get out of the day to day more. I needed to like be able to pass on more of my work to other people and have them be able to do it. Otherwise, the business wasn't going to succeed because I just couldn't. I couldn't run it at the level that I had. And so I worked with a coach. I very deliberately worked to get things off my plate, to find the right people, to find the right personality types and working styles and very, I would say slowly, but it also kind of happened fast. Got things off my plate, felt I was able to train my team to be able to do more things without my oversight and then pass them off and be like this is on your plate, it's not on my plate anymore, in a good way where they now
right.
take things off my plate and they say to me like, we don't need you for this anymore. Like still it happened
Please
last
stay
week,
out
they
of
were like,
this.
we don't need you. Yeah, they want me to stay out of it, but they're like, they can do it, they can handle it, they don't need me for all those things. So yes, it was deliberate and it took time, but it's been incredible, and it's been going now for years this way.
It's amazing. So it came out of a need, essentially, like a need to have things work differently, and it pushed you to make the change.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So, and tell us about the new business, The Point. And I'm just curious, like, about the different ways having multiple businesses, any other ways, like, what are the ways you're earning money?
Sure. Okay, so the new business is The Point. It is a company that helps families travel using credit card points, using points and miles, and kind of helping families see what elevated family travel can look like in a way that is sensitive to like culture and history and art and food. Like we're very into all the things and like getting to know places. And so I share a lot about the trips we take and like the unique trips we take, and especially with the kids, taking them to places that aren't just not like no shame on like a with a beach vacation, but like we take all kinds of trips, a lot of city trips. And so I help kind of inspire and teach people how to take trips like that with their kids and then how to use points to do it. So that is the point. That is the point. That's how I got the name. Like
I love it.
that is the point. But no, that
That is
is
the
the
point of
point
the
of the
point.
point. Yes. And so and honestly, that was kind of when the name of the company was called Brooklyn Family Travelers when I first started it, and it kind of started to outgrow the name. And when I was thinking of a new name, I loved the simplicity of the point. And part of what I liked about it was that, yeah, the point of all of this, like what is the point of all of this? It's like the experiences you have with your family and all that. So it always feels like right when it comes up. So the revenue streams and kind of how it all works. So with the point, I have a best-selling Substack, which has been really cool. So it's a newsletter that has a paid tier. So it's kind of a small but mighty newsletter, but it has a really significant readership of paid members. And so that has put it on the leaderboard as a top 40 best-selling Substack in travel, which is pretty cool, mm,
So cool.
which I love. And so that's one. I mean, even though that's great and it's not that something I would want to lose and I value it so much, it's not like a ton of money. Like this is Substack is one of those things where, they take a percentage, but also it would require having like a significantly larger newsletter for that to be a really big part of my income overall. I have a lot of affiliate relationships. So I have affiliate relationships with the credit card companies. So that's something that I'm able to write about different credit cards that people can get to earn these points, to take these trips. And then if people use my links to apply for those cards, it doesn't cost them anything, but I get paid. So that's very helpful. And, like any affiliate links, business owners always appreciate when you use them. And that's a big part of my income. And I do sometimes sponsorships and partnerships. I don't do a ton of those. I'm interested in doing more of those when they align, when they feel like they really resonate with my brand and with my audience. Like those are relationships that I really love. I do a lot of like coaching, like point strategy sessions. I don't do like a ton of them and it's not a huge part of the business model, but it's something that I do like one-on-one coaching to teach people how to use their points well. And then I
Mhm.
do classes sometimes and things like that. I also so that's the point. And then with Blue Balloon, I mean that's, it's that has its own like expenses and the families pay, the teachers get paid, the staff gets paid, there's like insurance and legal fees and software and like a million things that no one that if you don't have a business, you would never know what it goes into having a business, but it's like so expensive. And so that is still the main income for our family is that business. And and then I also do business coaching, which is really fun. I have 2 business coaching clients right now. Currently, I usually only take like 2 at a time, and I help people figure out how to take ideas they have and build them into businesses.
I didn't know you did that. That's amazing. It makes sense that you would do that. You're really good at that.
Thank you. I enjoy it so
Curious,
much.
so much of this, like even in your original business name, Brooklyn Family Travelers, like you talked about your kids, you're very money savvy, very point savvy, very business savvy. What do you hope your kids learn from you about money?
Oh, I love that. So the kids have this weird life where they're like, I mean, kids are freeloaders, right? They're like not contributing. They're like total freeloaders. They like can't, I mean, even in this, they can't open credit cards. They can't get the welcome bonus
Take me
points. They
back,
can't
right?
work. Like, I'm just like, come on, guys. No, but so their lives are like we try, we give them an allowance. We try to give them a sense of like what money buys, like what things cost. But then of course they're taking business class flights and staying in five-star hotels and not and they don't and so I try to explain to them the value of all this stuff and we talk about it a lot. We also talk a lot about like different currencies in the places we travel to, which I think is always like an interesting way for kids to learn about math and just learn about cultures and get a sense of like what things cost, but also how different people spend money and how things cost different amounts in different places. And they are very interested in money. Like, I think a lot of kids are interested in money, but they're very interested in I mean, they see me working and they see all the different ways I work and we talk sometimes about real numbers and it's something my parents never did when I was a kid and I don't actually have no idea. I'm like curious if that's something that more people do now, but it's something that, as a kid in the 80s, it was like I had no idea how much my parents made. I had no idea how much things cost. It was always like this is none of your business, which I guess I understand. I try to take some of, like, the shame out of money with my kids, like, that's a big part of I mean, I don't know if everybody feels this way, but I have a lot of, like, this feeling of spending money and having money makes me feel kind of ashamed, and
Mm.
trying to feel like it's okay to spend money on things that are important to me when there's, like, people in the world who don't have as much or there's just so many ways in which I feel a lot of anxiety and like worries about money. And so I want my kids to have a less complicated relationship with it, but I don't know if that's really possible. So when I want things to feel like less complicated and less anxiety provoking, I like to look at like the facts and
Mm.
not see things as this like just vague thing like you wouldn't understand, telling kids like you wouldn't understand. So I try to be somewhat real with them about numbers and how much things cost, but then also want them to be grounded and like understand that it takes a lot of work and luck and a lot of things to get to a place where you can afford some of these things. And also, like most of the stuff we do with points, we wouldn't be able to afford if we tried to use cash for it. We wouldn't be taking 12 to 15 trips a year. We'd be
Right.
taking like a trip, you know? So it's not like,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I do think kids are very naturally curious. And I do think like the past generation that got very shut down because people don't want to talk about it. And so, people will say, oh, is my kid like greedy? They care so much about money. But I just think it's natural. They're seeing we work so hard to make a living, to earn money. And so they see that. And then to just be able to share, okay, this is what something costs, or this is how we made that work, or we went business class once and now my son's always like, "Can we stop in those seats?" I'm like, "Not this time, but if that's something that's important to you and you work really hard, that could be something that happens for you in the future." So just like to help them start seeing the trade-offs and how money works, I think is really valuable. You mentioned they're too young to have credit cards. So like your kids don't have a point strategy yet or anything, do they? Like you have to wait till they're a little older for that.
Yeah, you can add your kids as an authorized user, and different banks have different rules as to like what age you can add them, and that can help their credit depending on the bank. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't really make a difference. It depends on depends on the bank. But in terms of it benefiting us, it they won't be able to open credit cards until they're 18, and then they can be kind of another person in the family that's then able to open their own cards and earn points. But as of right now, there isn't much. Yeah, they're on the wings of it. They're watching it. They kind of see and understand to some extent, but they're not able to take part.
Right. All right. A few more questions because we're running out of time, but what's something about your finances people would never guess?
I think one thing is like I think people see, oh, I have this like home in Brooklyn and we take all these trips and everything seems so like luxe and fancy. And I think one thing is that my parents are retired public school educators. I grew up in the suburbs of Detroit, like very solidly middle class. And my husband, he was only child of a single mom and she did very well for herself. But we didn't have, a situation where we had like trust funds and parents we can call for help if we, you know, if we're gonna miss a mortgage payment or something like that. Like we're very much like self-sufficient and on our own with our finances. And which as I've grown older and had more direct conversations with more people about money, the more I've realized that a lot of people have a lot of help and a lot of
Hmm.
people whose like lives you look at and you say like, wow, how did they do that? Like a lot of people work really hard and don't make a lot of money. And a lot of people work hard and do make a lot of money. And a lot of people have help from their families.
When I do the woman on the street interviews, something I found when I was in the West Village, I interviewed people about where they live and how much it costs. And 7 out of 8 people that I talked to didn't pay for their own rent.
Oh my
So it was
gosh.
like, yeah. So I think
Wow.
it's very common, and I do think that's one of the reasons I love doing this. Is a lot of times we're comparing ourselves and our lifestyle to people who aren't paying for it or who are using credit cards to pay for it. And then, of course, there is this group of people who are doing both or they have these strategies that we can learn from. And so that's a big part of why I'm doing the podcast is like, how do we how do we do some of the things that we see that are so aspirational, which curious, what are you working towards affording next? Like this was all about how you afford to travel and use points and have built these businesses, but what's next for you that you're trying to afford?
I think, I mean, right now we live across the street from the kids' elementary school, and they're both graduating. So one thought, when we live in a beautiful neighborhood, we love our home. But one thought is, could we live closer to where they're going to school next and have them be able to walk to school and kind of move our lives in that direction? But that with mortgage rates have like more than doubled since we got our home. So that requires then being able to pay more to be able to move to have something like close to what we live in now. So my hope is somehow in the next couple of years, we could move closer, kind of closer to the city, like closer to Manhattan, closer to the water, closer to the kids' schools, and so they can walk to school and we can still live in a place that's similar to where we live now.
I love it. Thank you, Rachel. I'm so inspired by how you've used points to leverage your lifestyle and started the point to help all of us do the same. So thank you for this behind the scenes look into how you use points to travel the world with your family. Where can everyone find you and support your work?
Thank you so much. Okay, so I am on Substack. As I mentioned, I have the best-selling Substack, The Point. I have an Instagram account for The Point. That's thepoint.edit. You can find the website is thepointedit.com. And then with Blue Balloon, you can look up blueballoonschool.com and you can see all about the music school that I have that I created so many years ago.
Amazing. Everyone go follow Rachel, subscribe to her newsletter. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for listening to How Do You Afford This? If you loved this inside look into how people are actually affording their lives, follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We have new episodes dropping every week, and trust me, you do not want to miss them. And please share this with a friend. You'll get credit for introducing them to their favorite new podcast, and you'll be helping me on my mission to make crafting a wealthy life more accessible, more transparent, and a whole lot more fun. See you next week.